Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's start on our backs today. I'm going to get my audio. And we'll find our way to a space where our spine can be supported, where your body can be at rest. Maybe even offering some broadness across the collarbones by opening the arms up towards cactus or T. Knees can be bent, legs can be extended. Bottoms of the feet can even be together, right? Whatever feels best here in this moment. And we just allow for as much softness as is possible to work through the breath. So that we feel the edges of the inhale and the edges of the exhale smoothing out. So that the transition between the two halves of the breath cycle is as fluid and as easy as is possible. And we just continue to maintain the sensation of settling throughout the duration of the exhale, so that each and every exhale breath offers us this opportunity to sink deeper into the physicality of the shape. We'll give ourselves just another about 35 seconds here. Landing in this space. When it feels right within you, let's inhale to bend both knees into a bent position if they're not. Kneecaps point towards the ceiling. And then delicately slide the left foot down the mat. So right knee stays bent, left leg extends. Push through that left heel, get some length through that left leg. Inhale, pull the right knee in towards the torso, interlace the fingers here. Make sure you're keeping the back side of the body grounded against the mat. So we don't want to round up. We don't want the shoulders peeling away from the mat. We maintain the broadness of the upper half of the torso, scapula work down. As the scapula work down, feel the compression of that right thigh coming closer and closer to our torso. And then bring a little activation into that right ankle as well. So both feet have a little awareness and activation through them. and start to just rock the right hip side to side. So you're looking in the pelvic bowl here. We are using the hip socket as kind of our guideline, not rotating the torso or rotating the torso as minimally as is possible, nice and aware of the amount of movement we're offering. Let's go. Two more times in each direction here. And when you feel like you are complete, release that right leg back down to the mat. Inhale and bend the left knee so that it mirrors the right, and then extend the right leg down so that it pushes away from the tailbone. And we'll activate through that right heel, then draw your left thigh in towards the rib cage. Left thigh comes in, we give ourselves that nice big squeeze here. Starting with the sensation of the squeeze and broadening out across the collarbone. So you continue to feel this sensation of broadness on the back side of the body, transitioning into compression, the front of the hip, thigh coming closer to the torso. And then we'll start to rock that left thigh a little side to side. Again, working in the hip capacity in its hip socket. So this is about opening up the hip capsule with the compression turned on. So those hands are still giving us a nice little squeeze. And when it feels right within your practice, let's go one more time in each direction. And we'll slowly bring that left knee back down to the mat, or the left foot back down to the mat, knee towards the ceiling, and then inhaling the right knee so that it mirrors the left. Arms out towards cactus or T, and we'll add in some sway through this hip lumbar spine space. Knees rock side to side. Just delicate rocking side to side. So there's this big, huge cattle ranch owned by this old timer cattle rancher, thousands and thousands of acres, thousands and thousands of cattle. And the ranch itself has a ranch hand, someone who kind of takes care of the day-to-day moving and repairing of the ranch's needs. And the ranch hand has a young son, maybe like 10 or 12 years old. Next time our knees fall over towards the right, let's allow them to stay over there. Settling into this twist, a little static hold here as we breathe into the rotation of the spine. Feel your breath filling that mid-body space, really accentuating the rotation that you're offering yourself. And try to get the musculature to fully expand into the full potential of your breath, into the full potential of what is available for its expansion. Just settle in here for about another 60 seconds. Notice if there is any musculature on that left side of your body gripping. Notice if there's any musculature on the right side of your body, specifically in the hips or low back region that are gripping. And think about using the power of the exhale to relax into any gripping sensation, any nagging sensation here. And when it feels right in your body, kneecaps back towards neutral. Tailbone flattens out. Really feel the resettling and the reacclimating of that sacral area. And then we'll allow the knees to fall over towards the left. Again, settling into the twist, feeling the shoulders grounding the upper half of your body. And feeling the breath fill the middle space here so that each inhale really accentuates the rotation of the spine. Gets into the expansion of the musculature within the twist. And then the exhale becomes the tool for smoothing out knee discomfort, for smoothing out any tissue that is frustrated with the shape you've offered. Now, when it feels right, when you feel balanced, when you feel like you've had an equal amount of time on this second side, let's bring our knees back towards neutral. Kneecaps come towards the ceiling. And we are going to help our left ankle across our right thigh. So we end up in a figure 4 here. And this figure 4 is going to be a bit dynamic. So this is actually a pretty good ask of the musculature for a recharge class, but we're doing it from our back, so we should be safe. So with the exhale, your right leg is going to extend down the mat. And as the right leg extends down the mat, the left knee falls open into this more horizontal version of figure 4. And then as you inhale, that right knee is going to rebend. You may need to take the foot off the mat to make that happen. And that is the musculature of the lower abdominals. And we come back up into this top shape figure 4, right knee bent figure 4. Exhale, the leg extends. We open up, we fully settle. So at the end of the exhale, the left leg is fallen open as much as is possible. And as we inhale, that right knee comes back into a bent shape and the left knee bends. And you're just going to work with your own breath. So the pacing and the dynamic quality of these two shapes, these two endpoints, will be completely dictated by how you are breathing here this morning. See if you can adjust your breath so that it is most beneficial for the physical movement, physical practice, and the physical space between these two shapes. Maybe that involves slowing things down, or maybe that's just smoothing out the way you breathe, or maybe that is just really syncing the duration of the breath with the duration of the movement in a way that everything just lands perfectly. Making sure to end at the two deepest potentialities of the shape, so that as that right knee bends and as the left ankle comes closest to you, get it as close as is comfortable. And as the right leg extends and that left knee falls open, see if it can open into that external rotation as deeply as possible. And let's just do that 2 more times on this side. And when you feel complete, we'll land in that figure 4 with our knee bent. So the same shape that we started in, right knee bent, left leg open. And then you can peel your shoulders off the mat if that is required here. We're gonna grab the left foot with our right hand, and then take the left hand to the left ankle, and we're just gonna pull that shin as close as is comfortable. Once you get a hold of the foot, and again, the hands are here just stabilizing the ankle. So I apologize, this is not a great, I'm gonna do this with my leg extended so you can see. So we get the ankle and we keep the integrity of the shape, and we just get a nice little squeeze in here. So an opening of that external rotation capacity with some encouragement. We're encouraging additional space to settle in. As we spend a little more time here, there may be a little bit more room. Can you take that room? Can you give your body that space? And eventually we'll release that left foot back down to the mat. And we'll take this over to side 2. The right ankle is going to come across the left quad. We find our top shape figure 4, knee bent figure 4, and we settle into that first. Thinking about how we can bring smoothness across the back side of the body. Arms can open up towards a stabilization shape, T or cactus, or something that feels right for you. And then eventually you're going to use the exhale to extend the left leg down the mat. Right knee falls open. And an inhale that bends the left knee and brings that right ankle closer to us. And then we go back into the dynamic movement here. Exhale is extending that left leg, opening up the full potential of the right hip. And inhales, compressing into that left hip, bending the left knee, and giving us some more ask on the outer edge of the right hip. Moving with your breath. Once again, allowing yourself to use the syncing of the breath and the movement in a way that benefits your practice in the maximum available way. Really being within the breath and within the movement to open up this right hip. Settling fully into the shapes. So there was nothing that this son of the ranch hand wanted more than for the rancher himself to be impressed with him. The 10-year-old, 12-year-old. His biggest dream in life is to someday be the ranch hand. A ranch that he can move the cattle around himself. And so he would wake up super early in the morning And he would just think of what he could do to impress the rancher. He'd watch what his dad did. He'd observe his dad going through all of these fence mendings and bucket fillings, moving the water around, giving the cows those little love taps. Give yourself just another movement or two. When you feel complete, when you feel like you've had enough of this dynamic movement, we meet with our knee bent, left knee bent. Take the left hand to the bottom of the right foot and the right hand to the ankle. So again, we just support the integrity of that ankle shape and then squeeze that posterior tibialis, so that inner shin, that back calf musculature, just a little closer to our torso. Once again, think about flattening out the torso. Make sure you're maintaining the integrity of this right ankle. And just breathe into a little bit of room, a little bit of space here. As the time goes by, remember that there's likely more room to work into. Think about how you can find that, slip into that additional space. And then eventually we're going to release that right leg. Knee bent position, kneecap towards the ceiling. Bring the left leg into a mirroring shape if it's not, and rock your hips a little side to side once again. So some new sensation likely available here. Okay. Maybe a sensation of restriction, maybe a sensation of freedom, or maybe a sensation of both, right? There's can be this like medial line restriction that opens up into this external expansiveness. This is just kind of from what we've done so far. But explore this until we feel a little bit of smoothing out of the movement itself. And then eventually, as it feels right for you, let's pick a direction and we're just going to roll to that side, whatever side feels best. And then from your roll, we're just going to end up right on our belly. So you don't even need to reorient your body, just end up on your belly. And bring the elbows underneath the shoulders for Sphinx. In this Sphinx pose, we're going to squeeze the shoulders down, tuck the chin in towards the sternum. As the chin tucks in towards the sternum, there's more room to squeeze the shoulders down. Do that, and then just let your head rock a little side to side. The head rock here, because we have so much of this extension / flexion energy through the spinal column, may start to send some pretty good sensation down that quadriceps laborum musculature. We've kind of put that musculature at its full range with the extension of the thoracic spine and then this huge flexion of our cervical spine, of our neck structure. So if we start to feel those sensations down the musculature on either side of the back, see if you can just slow down your breath and smooth that out. Maybe even slow down the movement even more than what you already have. Eventually, we'll bring our chin back to neutral. We'll lift our head. And we'll just come into a Sphinx pose with a full flexion shape through the spinal column. So all the way from the pelvic bowl through the base of the skull. Think about an arch, a bowing shape. Think about how you can get your hips to meet the mat even more intently so that there is a real connection at the hip bone for your back to start arching into this extension from. Give yourself about 15 more seconds here. And release yourself down. Stack your hands, crocodile pose. Elbows can go out wide, forehead rests upon those stacked hands. Think about sending your breath below your rib cage so that the musculature around the lumbar spine here gets big and expansive and inflating. So one morning, this ranch hand son wakes up, and instead of just thinking about what he could do to impress the rancher, he decides he's going to get busy. He goes outside and he starts filling up water buckets. It's the first thing he knows his father, the ranch hand, does. Give yourself 30 more seconds here. And he starts filling up 1, then 2, then 10, then 20, then 30. Eventually, he's filled up all 100 buckets. He looks in the house. House light hasn't even come on yet. So his father, the ranch hand, isn't even awake. And he's already got things off to the races. When it feels right for you, as it feels right for you. Let's slide our hands underneath our shoulders, bring some strength into the musculature just above the knees, and then keeping your nose as low as is possible, slide yourself back into child's pose. So ideally, we're dragging the nose along the mat, but we are moving in a way where we can just glide back as horizontally as is possible into child's pose. And we breathe here. And we smooth here. And we settle here and we land here, right? Remember that we are landing into that hip space. And as it feels right for you, let's use some finger grip in front of us to pull ourselves forward to hands and knees, tabletop. From hands and knees, tabletop, we will spend just a moment here with a little lateral hip sway. So playing on that musculature, playing with the musculature that we opened in our Sphinx pose, this upper quadrus laborum. We're going to work lower quadrus laborum by swaying the hips and keeping the shoulders as stable as is possible. Really think about shoulder stability here, head and neck not moving at all, or as little as is possible. And then eventually we'll bring tailbone back to neutral, splay the fingers out nice and wide, press down to the fingertips, press down to the finger mounts, curl your toes and lift yourself into a down dog. So this is going to be the only down dog of class, and we just want to use this as an exploration of the hamstrings. You can pedal out the calves here, but really think about pushing back into the middle of the hamstrings. Like hips are going back, knees can bend. Remember, knees can bend here. So what I am asking is kind of a different version of down dog than we normally get into, right? Down dog is normally this opening of the lower back. What I want you to find here is where the hamstrings start to become restrictive. So if you feel like you can get your depth in your shape by bending the knees, bend the knees, get the depth in the shape, and then start to push back into the heels and start to activate that hamstring tissue, and then start to walk out from there. And that sensation can be pretty intense, right? This can be a shape that we feel an awful lot of restriction in if we walk ourselves into it the right way. And that's okay. We want to get that hamstring activation turned on because we're going to use it in Happy Baby next. When it feels right within you, let's come back down to hands and knees. And then let's do this. Let's take our mats to our wall. You may want to put your socks on here, especially if you don't like footprints on your walls. If you're like me, footprints are just all over the walls. So hopefully I'm gonna have enough room here. Yeah, I'm short. All right, we can see me good. So we're gonna start legs up the wall. Just traditional legs up the wall, tailbone tucked into the corner, and breath nice and fluid. Again, we're kind of activating into some hamstrings. For a lot of us, legs up the wall is pretty intense hamstring restriction. Remember that the knees can bend. But looking to open up our hamstrings and of course our low back here, right? Legs up the wall is such a beautiful reset of the spine. But I want you to kind of have a focus on an area where I don't normally put the focus or emphasis on, which is the hamstrings here. So if you have the capacity for the legs to kind of rest against the wall, if you don't need a knee bend at all, you can take your hands and give yourself like a 3% energy into the middle of the quads. So we do not want to hyperextend our knees, right? Our knees are pretty important joints for our mobility. But if you can give yourself just a little 3% energy into the quads and get that hamstring tissue to turn on just a little bit more, we're going to use that space to deepen our happy baby when we do slip in and out of that shape here in a moment. So this young boy gets these buckets filled, and then he thinks about what his father, the ranch hand, would do next. And it's get these massive bales of hay down. His father uses a tractor with kind of a forklift attachment on the front of it. But he's never been on a tractor before, and he's certainly not going to start that up with so many people sleeping. So he just climbs up to the top of this haystack and starts pushing these bales down, using all his effort, kind of ramming his shoulder up there, full double arm thrusting, and eventually he gets the first bale to kind of topple off the top of the rafters. Now it comes down and it smashes, it thuds into the barn floor. And fortunately, unfortunately, either way, the twine was going to have to be broken, but the twine itself just kind of explodes and the bale of hay just kind of explodes throughout the barn. He looks down and he's like, okay, well, number one, don't fall. Number two, I better go clean that up in case anyone wakes up. He goes down, he starts gathering kind of these leaves of hay. Hay bales get these like big compression pieces, right? And these compressions peel off into these little flake-like squares that are called leaves. And he starts gathering those up and bringing those out to the cows. And he ends up taking one leaf of hay, which is about like 4 inches wide, like 4 inches by 24 by 24, and a bucket of water. And he takes one in each hand, bucket of water in one hand, leaf of hay in the other. He walks it out, tosses it down for the cows. All right, so let's start to walk the feet down the wall. And now some of us may need to scoot away from the wall. Some of us may be able to do this right here. I'm gonna need a little more room in my sweatpants. We're gonna reach from the inner edge, medial edge of the thighs out to the lateral edge of the feet for some happy baby. So a happy baby, not traditionally thought of as a hamstring pose. And I've been talking about how the hamstrings are so important, but there is a lot of hamstring requirements. So in order for us to get into the hips, we have to transcend the hamstrings. And I want you to feel that. I want you to feel the femoral head working down into the hip socket, the energy of the hands squeezing back, the back side of the body against the mat. We're not rounding up into this shape. And if you feel like you are rounding up, just lower your grip. Take your grip towards the ankles and squeeze down. You can even take your grip towards the hamstrings and squeeze down. And we're gonna come in and out of happy baby a few times here. So as you start to just settle into this shape, maybe you rock a little side to side, but start to feel what sensations are arising within this shape this morning. We'll be here for another 15 seconds. For many of us, it's that femoral head burning sensation. It is nerve sensation of the bone structure of the femur, the head of the femur, pressing into the bone structure of the ilium, the pelvic bowl. When it feels right for you, legs extend back up the wall. And now the back up the wall shape is kind of different, right? We have likely more room in the hamstrings. You're also likely feeling more sensation of the low back against the mat. And you're likely deeper into this shape, but we also likely have some blood flow restriction into the legs. If the blood flow restriction starts to create that tingling sensation or a sensation that you're not comfortable with, just bend the knees. And you can just take the feet kind of into this space, or you can come off the wall completely, right? Make sure you're taking care of your body. But you can also just start to slow things down, close the eyes. Maybe even as you feel it right, squeeze into the glutes and help kind of press some blood flow, almost like an artificial heart with our glute tissue to press some blood flow back up into the feet. Right, so if we use the musculature of the glutes as kind of like this compressive piece that lets go and compressive piece that lets go and compressive piece that lets go, that really is like replicating the usefulness of the pumping mechanism of the heart. We just happen to be doing it with our glutes, happening to help blood flow up into the feet. And we'll give ourselves about 20 more seconds here. When it feels right for you, walking the feet back down. We're going to come back to the happy baby pose. Arms come to the inside edge of the legs, hands come to the outside edge of the feet, and we peel those feet away from the wall. See if you can sink even deeper into this happy baby pose. Happy baby is not a shape that you often get into multiple times in class, right? So the second time we revisit this may be the only time you've revisited happy baby in a single class before. Notice the variance from the first time. Notice the depth that's available to you. Notice the width that's available to you, even in the hips. Even the hips can get wider than they were the first time we visited this shape. And just breathe into that expansiveness once again. We have 15 more seconds here. That's a long 15 seconds, but we'll release our legs back up the wall. Traditional legs up the wall for the first moment here. This is kind of a reintegration. Think about the blood flow normalizing again. Think about making sure you have blood flow into your feet. And then if you feel right, when you feel ready, if you feel ready, we will take those legs out to a wide version of legs up the wall and really settle into some space. Now we start to feel that medial hamstring line, or you likely feel the medial hamstring line. You may not. And we once again feel that settling of the low back. Really think about the settling sensation of the low back and the settling sensation of the body into the shape. Eventually, the bale of hay is completely gone. And leaf by leaf, it has gone away. This boy climbs back up to the top rafters where the hay is and works and pushes and presses another bale down. It falls to the barn floor. And again, the twine just explodes. These leaves separate. It opens up kind of like a pack of cards. He grabs a leaf, grabs a bucket, takes it out to the cow field. Comes back, another leaf, another bucket to the cows, another leaf, another bucket to the cows. And he does that until the next bale is gone. He climbs up one more time. This time as he's climbing up, he sees the light in his house flick on. He knows his dad is now awake. And as he pushes this bale off the top of the rafters, he sees his dad looking through the window and his jaw drops open. Boom, bale smashes. His dad comes running out. It's like, what are you doing? And it's like, oh, don't worry, Dad, don't worry. I've got this figured out. The twine breaks. I don't need to cut it. I don't even need a knife. I pick up these leaves. I take them out. The barn looks just as good as it was before. His dad just kind of chuckles and says, okay, goes back inside to make his coffee. Giving yourself 30 more seconds here. And this process repeats itself. 5 or 6 more bales of hay explode across the barn floor. 250 to 300 more leaves of hay get moved out into the fields. After a while, all the buckets of water are taken, and he just takes 2 leaves of hay, 1 leaf in each hand, as he carries it out to the cows. And they're like recognizing this and running over and greeting him now. Randy feels so good about it. And when it feels right, we will walk our feet back to midline. A moment of recognizing how nice this feels. Potentially how challenging this feels, depending on how open your body's feeling this morning. And then one more time, we are going to walk our feet down and head in towards a third happy baby. Again, recognizing the amount of depth that's available to us. Thinking about the width that's available as the inner edge of the thighs work themselves open. Thinking about how the energy from the hands is rooting itself in the femoral head of the hip. So the hand energy drawing that tibia fibia down into the femur tibia fibia connection at the knee, and then that energy working all the way into the hip socket. And we just breathe here. We're going to give ourselves 15 more seconds in Happy Baby. Happy Baby quickly becoming one of those shapes that is poorly named, right? And extend those legs back up. Oh, happiness from the release of Happy Baby into a traditional version of legs up the wall. This will be the last time we go legs up the wall today. We're keeping this simple. We're keeping the energy of the thighs together. We're keeping the tailbone tucking into the corner, and we're fully sinking into this shape. Really thinking about your body letting go into this shape here against the wall. See if you feel more room in the hamstrings. See if you feel more room in the low back. See if you can appreciate more room in the hips. So after some time, this young boy's father, the ranch hand, comes out. He has his cup of coffee in hand. He walks over to his son. He kind of tossles his hair a little bit and says, "Damn proud of you, son. Damn proud of you." And his little son just smiling ear to ear with a leaf of hay in each hand, walks back out into the cow field. When he turns around, his dad has kind of disappeared, undoubtedly starting some task that needs to get done throughout the day. And that was the last two leaves of hay. So this young boy is like, okay, what is next? He starts thinking about what the next thing is done after the cows are all fed. And as his brain kind of realizes the next thing that's done is the cows are moved into a new paddock. And so he opens this little human-sized gate, right? About a 4-foot wide gate. And walks into the paddock once again. He goes over to the cow-sized gate, these two 12-foot by 12-foot gates, swings them open, and starts to kind of shoo the cows into the new paddock. Almost immediately, he recognizes he's made a mistake. The mistake is that the human-sized gate in the next paddock has been left open. It's about 4 foot wide, so while it is human-sized, a cow could conceivably fit through it. And even worse, as the cows are now rushing into this new paddock, he sees the rancher himself coming out of the ranch house. And just as he opens that door, a cow squeezes through the human gate in the next paddock. And the rancher comes down and he's flailing his arms and he's freaking out. And he just starts yelling at this young boy and puts him into a state of tears. Last 30 seconds here. So one cow escapes. The rancher shuts the human gate in the new paddock. The young boy shuts the dual cow-sized gates in the new paddock, and the cows are moved. The cows are watered, the cows are fed, the cows are moved. And one cow has escaped. That doesn't take long. The ranch hand hears the rancher yelling, comes over, wrestles the cow back in, puts him back in. He joins the cows. This is like a 5-minute problem. But the rancher comes over and he just starts berating the young boy even more. The tears weren't enough. All right. When it feels right for you, we are going to transition off the wall and back into a shape on our mat where the wall won't interfere with us. You don't need to move away from the wall necessarily. You just want to move your body into a place where it can eventually settle into a Shavasana. So whatever feels right for you. I'm going to reorient my mat just for the video, but whatever works in your body, do that. And then let your eyes close, and we're going to tune in the same way we do before all Shavasanas, right? We're just going to think about what our body needs. Now, we have spent about 30 minutes working between a legs up the wall, which is an awful long time, and a happy baby. Again, an awful long time for those shapes. So pay particular attention to what the hips need. They might need a bridge. They might need a little rocking side to side. I bet they don't need a happy baby. But anything, even if it is happy baby, right? Anything that your body's asking for, offer that here. Bring that into the practice here. And then once you feel right, when you feel ready, as you feel ready, just release yourself into a shape where you can appreciate Shavasana. So the rancher finally finishes chewing out this ranch hand son. The ranch hand son runs back inside, throws himself on his bed, and a few minutes later, he hears the door open. The ranch hand comes in. He's like, hey, what's going on? You made a mistake there, but it's okay. It's not a big deal. Your body eventually just drifts into a place where it's at ease. And so the ranch hand speaking to his son, says, hey, you made a mistake. It's okay. We solved it. And the son says, yeah, I know, Dad. I know I made a mistake, but he didn't see all the work I had done. He didn't see all the good things I'd done. He didn't see that I moved those 100 buckets of water, that I fed all the cows. All he saw was that I made one tiny mistake. And he didn't have to yell at me like that. Start to bring some movement to your fingers and your toes. The ranch hand nods. He says, yeah, he didn't have to yell at you like that. And you did do lots of good things this morning. Move your wrists, your ankles, your elbows, your knees. And continues. This is but you have to remember your shoulders, your hips. That it's not just the good things we do that are the expressions of ourselves. Your neck and your head. He says everything that comes out of us, everything we do is an expression of who we are, the good and the bad. Eventually we bring enough movement into our body that we can transition from where we are back into a seat. From the seated space, our spine gets tall. Our breath gets fluid. Our hips settle into that space that we have offered them. And our eyes close. And we'll inhale our hands together at heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you remember that everything that comes out of you is the expression of who you are? And make you who you are as beautiful as can be. Thank you so much for being a part of this morning's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Sunday, guys. Thanks for being here. I am hoping I will see you tomorrow night, 7 p.m., Tumbleweed Recreation Center. Hope that is a reality. If it's not, I'm glad I got to see you today. I love you. I appreciate you. I'll see you soon. Mwah.